Senator Torricelli, let me start with you. You obviously have known this resistance movement for many years. You have seen the ups and downs. You have seen the demonization campaign that has led to the wrong policy that has been successfully fought in courts. And now with the uprisings in Iran, now that the Iranian regime is essentially completely delegitimized with the protests and the slogans inside Iran where people are saying death to Khamenei, down with the dictators, the conversation around the alternative has come up. I'd love for you to kind of walk us through on what are the criteria for an alternative that stands up to the challenge of fighting against this regime, because we have seen and we have witnessed a lot of noise and a lot of different failed attempt to forge an alternative that really lacked the credibility and authenticity. So would love to get your thoughts on that question, and then we just kind of go from there.
Certainly, thank you. And it's not my role to welcome everyone, but I do think, given the events of the last couple of days, it is worth saying that I know for many of you, coming here is a lot of time away from family, and it's an enormous expense. It even has an element of danger to it. If you wondered whether it was worth doing, I ask you just to consider several years ago, the regime attempted a terrorist attack on this meeting. This year, Raisa called Macron to have it canceled. They put pressure on Albania. There's been an international effort to keep you from being here. They've only done that for one reason. Your being here has meaning. It is part of the change. The overthrow of the regime begins with you. And being here every year is the best contribution any free citizen can make to freeing Iran. So thank you for being here. I'd like to answer your question really from several perspectives. One, for those of you from Europe or for North America, I've always been curious about something, that if there's the slightest change in governance in France or Italy or Britain or Canada or Australia, it's met with outrage. Democracy is being challenged. We're in danger. But if there's a coup in Latin America, a loss of governance in Africa, if a Middle East nation is thrown into despotic governance, it seemed like it's part of the norm. We live in a time when we talk about believing that people are genuinely equal, and that the prior notions of colonialism and racism are behind us. Are they? Is there some reason why the Iranian people, why they're living in this medieval circumstance of a despotic government that abuses its people in absolute desperate poverty? Why this is seen by some quarters in Washington or London or Paris as acceptable, part of the norm? No people should have to live under these circumstances. The home of my ancestors in Italy, a country that has no natural resources, nothing but the ingenuity of its people, has a per capita income 10 times of Iran, a nation of great wealth and resource, with a rich culture and energetic people. How is it that being born in Iran equates to living in complete poverty, with children with no future? We all know what has to change, but it begins with accepting that which we want for ourselves and our children and the nations of Europe and North America is the same for all other peoples. Then dealing with Iran becomes unacceptable. Compromise becomes unacceptable. There is no compromise with absolute evil, and that's what we're dealing with. I've there are parts of America that I love, and there are parts that confound me, but that there is deep in the heart of every American a belief that if you're just patient enough, you just try long enough, there's goodness in everyone. Just wait it out. At some point, you have to accept reality. There is no goodness beating in the heart of the mullahs in Tehran. Time is not going to solve this problem, nor is compromise, which gets to your question. There are a variety of groups fighting for change in Tehran. I understand that. Some well-intentioned, some not. Some are just props for the regime. If you start on the issue of change in Tehran with believing you can reform the government, you're not part of this movement, you're not part of the answer, and frankly, I don't want anything to do with you. There is no reforming Tehran. That's the beginning of what comes with change. Second, we don't need to go back. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the streets. And those kids in the streets of cities of Iran who are yelling, no to the mullahs, no to the Shah, have it exactly right. We're not taking the mullahs, but we're not going back either. That's not the answer either. Now, where does this leave us? Well, you've already answered that. You voted with your bodies, being here today. What does a revolutionary movement require? Dogged determination, incredible focus, the willingness to pay any price to bring change. It requires a people who are completely committed to a cause. I just defined the MEK. It requires resources because it takes time and it takes money, it takes depth, it takes people who are willing to sacrifice with their own resources. I just defined the MEK. It takes a leadership that will pay any price and has a vision for the future. Not only what they want to destroy, but what they want to create. I just defined Mrs. Rajavi in the 10-point plan. It takes an... And it takes an international coalition with people on the streets, the revolutionary cells that are now throughout Iran, helping to lead and direct this movement. That's the MEK. You are part of that change. And finally, most of us have met before. And I've shared with you before, I know 40 years is a long time, except in the eyes of history. It's a long time in the life of a man or woman, but not in history. I've told you the story as a young congressman. I had a multi-ethnic district, and I used to go to these events for Free Poland and Free Hungary, and I shook every hand and I made every speech, but I always laughing under my breath. Are these people kidding? Poland's been communist for 30 years, 40 years. This is never going to change. I was young. I didn't understand. They understood. I didn't understand. Of course it changes. Freedom is the inevitable circumstance of man. It doesn't come free. It doesn't come easy. It doesn't come fast, but it comes. We are on our path. I believe it as much as I believe in anything in my life. But what is that alternative? You are the alternative. We have built it. We just have to get over the line. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator. In your mind, if you were to give top 3 things to members of media and top 3 items that you want to message to the people of Iran in terms of what to look for in an alternative that is credible and authentic, what would that be, Senator Torricelli?
Okay, let's talk to the people of Iran. Many can hear our voices today. It's important they know part of what's being said here. And let's do it through you. You're back. few of you are here for the first time. Do you really believe you can overthrow the government in Tehran? Are you here because it's a commitment to culture or your family or the place that you love and you feel you need to be here? Or because you really believe that you can overthrow the government in Tehran? You would be forgiven for being here out of a commitment to family and culture, but having your doubts. I will tell you, when my family left Italy, in fascist Italy, they came to America, they never looked back. They never believed you could overthrow fascism. You couldn't speak Italian in our house. No one could talk about Italy. We were Americans. It was done. And you would be entitled to have that view. But you'd be wrong. I've said these numbers to some of you before. Overthrowing the government of Tehran, of course it's hard. Impossible? Not at all. Not even close. How many people went back to St. Petersburg to overthrow the Tsar and the Kerensky government with Lenin? How many? 24. When Napoleon returned to France, how many people left with him? 40. When Castro returned to overthrow dictatorship in Cuba from Guatemala, how many people did he have with him? 25. When the ANC was taking down the government of South Africa, how many core members were there in the ANC? 200. Joe Lieberman talked about the American Revolution. At Valley Forge, how many soldiers did Washington have? 800. Tyrants fall of their own weight because people will not stand for it anymore. When I was a young congressman, Joe was probably in the room, and now I am speaking to the people of Iran. I heard an unbelievable message. Lech Walesa, who had been a shipyard worker in Poland, became the president of a free Poland. He came to speak to the Congress. His words, I wish every Iranian could hear that speech. He said every day he went to work, and every day they sat on the floor because they wanted a free union and a free Poland, and they were thrown out. The next day they did the same thing, and it went on for months. One day, Lech Walesa, shipyard worker, with not a single man standing behind him, was walking home. And on the right was the road to his house, and on the left was the wall to the shipyard. And he said to himself, not today. Not today. And he climbed the wall, went back in the shipyard. And to his surprise, hundreds and then thousands of people followed him, and they occupied the shipyard, and they shut it down. And they started their union, which started a party which brought down Polish communism. He didn't have the 24 that went to St. Petersburg, or the 12 that came, or 20 that came to Paris. He stood alone. We have amassed a massive movement around the globe of enormous resources, a political core, an inspiring leader in Madame Rajavi. But we will not break their backs. We will fill the vacuum because we are ready to lead and provide a new government in Tehran. What will break their backs is there's that oil worker who says, not today. There's that soldier pointing his gun at an innocent Iranian citizen who says, today I'm putting down my gun. I did not join the armed forces of Iran to abuse my people. I did not start pumping oil to feed the corruption of the mullahs. The bureaucrat who will not come to work tomorrow. I don't know where it'll start. I don't know who it is. I know that there are thousands of people in the streets of Tehran right now fighting to be that person and for that honor. But that one will emerge, then two, then three, and it'll rise like a wave. If you are here because you believe in Iran and your culture and your family and you're committed, God bless you. But if that's the only reason you're here, you're wrong. You are bringing down the mullahs. There's a reason Raisa are called Macron. There's a reason they're putting pressure on Albania. There's a reason why they're chasing the MEK all around the globe. Because they know, even if you don't, even if you're wrong, even if you don't believe, you're wrong. They believe. The mullahs may be evil, but they're not stupid. They know this movement brings down the regime. The day is coming. And to your earlier question, what you've done by helping this organization is that when they come down, there doesn't have to be chaos, another lost decade, more poverty, more abuse, another Shah. Fascism doesn't have to fill the vacuum. We have the makings of a democratic revolution that knows where it is going, the Iran that it wants. The movement is here. And you've built that. And for that, you and your family and those who follow you should be eternally proud. I don't know if it answered your question, but I hope it did.
It did. Thank you so much.